Good morning. This video is for Pre-Algebra Chapter 10, Lesson 5, Surface Area of Prisms and Cylinders. Alright, so in the two last videos, we talked about how prisms and cylinders are actually the same thing, but according to our textbook, they are not. Prisms and cylinders both mean when you have, well, basically, later on in math, much later on in math, we're just going to stop referring to prisms as prisms and just call prisms cylinders. Because basically what it is a cylinder is any shape that has been elongated. Basically, if I have two circles that I pull apart and then have a shape between them, either a rectangle, or if I take two parallelograms that are the same size and shape and I stretch them apart, that is also a cylinder. So just know that later on, prisms are actually cylinders and cylinders are just cylinders. But a cylinder later on in math can refer to both a circle that's elongated and also like a polygon that's been elongated. All right? So, but according to your book, a prism will have a polygonal base and a cylinder will have a circular base. So don't mistake what your book is actually asking you for. Okay? So the book will ask you for circular shapes when referring to a cylinder and will refer to a polygon shape when referring to a prism. All right, back to regular whatever. Prisms and cylinders can be right or oblique. That's what that word is. O-B-L-I-Q-U-E. Oblique. Okay? A right prism stands straight up, whereas an oblique prism has a lean to it. See how it's leaning? Kind of like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, which is more cylinder shape, which is why we also have oblique cylinders. And we also have right cylinders as well. So just pay attention to that. Now the height actually has not changed for either your cylinder or your prism. So don't think anything has really changed mathematically. It just means that you have a tilted or slanted or leaning figure if it is oblique. If it's straight up and down, it's just considered right, because it's usually at a right angle. Okay, so just in this text, you may assume that prisms and cylinders are right unless otherwise stated. All right, so surface area is the sum of the areas of the bases and the lateral faces of a space figure. It might help to visualize the net and find the area of each shape that makes up the net. Now your book wants you to memorize some crazy formulas, but the only formulas I really want you to memorize are the areas of shapes. Know how to find the area of a triangle, 1/2 base times height. How to find the area of a rectangle, base times height. How to find the area of a circle, pi r squared. All right, so those are the things that you really need to know, and I will write them down here real quick. So area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. Area of a rectangle or square is base times height, and the area of a circle is pi r squared. Okay, those are the things that you really need to have memorized for this lesson. All right, the other thing that will help is if you can visualize how to lay a three-dimensional figure into a net. Okay, and we will talk about that and show you what it looks like. Okay, so here are the steps for finding the surface area of basically any space figure. Think about the shapes that make up the space figure and how many of each you have that are exactly the same. When I mean exactly the same, I mean have the exact same measurement, not just the exact same shape. All right? Sorry, guys. I have allergies, so I'm sorry if you hear me like dabbing my nose politely. All right. 2, write down the area formulas for those shapes. So what are the area formulas? Again, is it 1/2 base times height because you have a triangle? Is it pi r squared because you have a circle? Is it base times height because you have a rectangle? Number 3, figure out the area of each individual shape. All right? And then 4, multiply the area of each shape by the number of shapes you have if they are exactly the same. This goes back up to this step right here has to do with that are exactly the part. How many of each you have that are exactly the same. And then you're going to add them all together. All right, so here I have a triangular prism, aka a triangular cylinder. Okay? So let's go ahead and talk about the shapes that make up this space figure, specifically the shapes on the outside. So I have two triangles, and they both have the same measurement of 3 yards by 4 yards by 5 yards. So all of them have different side measurements, okay? And I have two of them. As you can tell, I have one right here. I should probably use the same color as the one I drew down, huh? I have a triangle right here, and I also have a triangle right there. Okay, so I do have two of them. All right, now I have a rectangle right there. I actually have 3 of them. And so as I can show you, I have one, let's see here, this triangle in the background is the one that's 3 by 6 yards. It's the orange one, all right? And then I have another triangle, which is this kind of tealy blue. It's kind of a shark's blue, huh? That is 4 by 6, and that's this one down here on the bottom. And then I also have a purple triangle that is 5 by 6. That's up here in the foreground, right there. That's the 5 by 6 one. Okay? And again, we have the teal one that's at the bottom. It's really hard to see because this figure is kind of flattened on the bottom. And then we also have the orange one that's in the background over here. Okay? Now we need to find the areas of all of these because all of them are different except for the triangles. The triangle is the only thing we can find once and then multiply by 2 to actually count. So that's what we're going to do. So let's find the area of a triangle. Now remember, the area of the triangle is the base times the height, and the base and the height have to be at right angles to each other. So that means I'm going to use the 3 and the 4 and not the 5 in my calculation. So I did 3 times 4 times a half, and then I'm going to multiply it by 2, and I'm going to write the multiply by 2 as in because we have 2 triangles differently than the other multiply by 2's, so that you can see that the first time I'm multiplying here is just to find the area of one triangle, and then I multiply by 2 using this way to show the fact that I actually had 2 triangles, and that's why I'm multiplying by 2. Okay, so the area of this triangle is 12 yards. Now I'm going to find the area of the orange rectangle, which is 18 yards because it's the rectangle is 3 by 6, so 3 times 6 is 18. And then the tealy shark's teal is 4 times 6 because it's a 4 by 6 rectangle, which is 24 yards squared. And the purple rectangle is 5 times 6, which is 30 yards. And then, therefore, I have all of the areas of all of my figures, which is good because I'm trying to find the area of the surfaces. I'm trying to find the areas of each flat surface. And again, I had 2 triangles and 3 rectangles. The 2 triangles are the exact same size, so I could just multiply one of the areas by 2 to get both areas. And then each of my other rectangles are actually all 3 different dimensions, so I can't just multiply times one of them to get all 3. Okay, so my total surface area of this figure is to add them all up, which is step 5, and we get 84 yards total, yards squared, because we're dealing with area. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. This is a rectangular prism, and this is going way too fast. So let's just move back here. There we go. Too far. Okay. So, this rectangular prism has 2 bases, and every shape has at least 1 base or 2 bases, but never more than 2 bases unless it's a regular shaped figure that's, which is what we're not going to be dealing with right now, okay? Because you could get like a soccer ball that is regular, except for that new soccer ball that they have for the World Cup, but whatever, I'm not going there. It has 2 bases, and this one has 2 rectangular bases that are 3 by 4, and then it has 4 other rectangles that make up the lateral faces, and we need to figure out how many of those we have. So my 2 bases are 3 by 4, and since I have 2 of them, I'm going to need to multiply that one by 2. Now I have 2 lateral faces that are the same, and those are the ones that I showed in black, both in my net and as I highlighted them on the thing. So if you need to see it again, let's see here. There we go. Watch this. All right, so 2 bases, 2 black rectangles, and 2 blue rectangles. And I'm missing a blue rectangle, though. I think I'm still using that shark's color right there. So there we go. So there's the two blue rectangles, which are 3 by 6. And notice how the blue rectangle is right there by that 3, and it still has a height of 6. Whereas the black rectangles have a base of 4 and a height of 6. So they're actually two different sizes of lateral faces. Well, let's figure out the area of the bases first. So that would be the bases, which are rectangles, which would be base times height, which is 3 times 4, and then I have 2 of them. Remember, I was going to use that times 2 or times, so use the x as multiplication to show when I'm multiplying by the number of those shapes I have. Okay, so 3 times 4 times 2 is 24. Now let's deal with the black lateral faces. Those are my 3 by 4 shapes. Or excuse me, not 3 by 4, 4 by 6 shapes. Because this side is a 4 and this side is a 6, that makes it a 4 by 6. But I also have 2 of them, so I'm going to multiply by 2, which is going to give me a total area of 48 meters squared. Now for the light blue rectangles and lateral faces, they are rectangles, so it's going to be base times height, and they are 3 by 6 rectangles, and I do have 2 of them. So that gives me a surface area of those rectangles of 36 meters squared. Then to find the surface area of the total, I'm going to add them all up. And that's going to give me a total of 108 meters squared. So the surface area of this entire rectangle is 108 meters squared. All right, last problem, a cylinder. Well, think about the shapes that make up the sides of this cylinder. I have 2 circles, and I have the rectangular shape that is made up of the circumference from both of the bases. So let's find the area of the first base. Well, that would be 2 circles, and then a circle is pi r squared, and we're going to use 3.14. R is the radius, and then we're going to square it. And then we're also going to multiply by 2 because I actually have 2 circles. I have one on the top and one on the bottom of my can. And so the area of those 2 circles is 38.465 centimeters squared. Then I'm going to find the area of the rectangle. Well, the lateral face, which is a rectangle, is base times height. The only thing is the base of my rectangle, and this would be the base. That's the base. Not to be confused with the base shape, this is the base measurement, is the same distance as the distance around my circle. So I need to find the distance around my circle. Well, the distance around a circle is called circumference. So that means that the base is equal to the circumference of the circle. So how do I find circumference? Well, that's 2 pi r, also known as pi times diameter. Well, diameter is just 2 times r. And I know that r is 3.5, so 2 times 3.5 is 7, and then, so that's the circumference, and then I can multiply the, that's the diameter. So 7 is the diameter. To find the circumference, I multiply the diameter times 3.14, which gives me an approximate circumference of 21.85, which means I can now replace the base measurement with the circumference measurement, which is 21.95, and it should be, what, centimeters? There you go. So now I'm going to multiply the circumference times the height of the cylinder and get the area of that rectangle, which is 252.77 centimeters squared, approximately. And again, it's approximately because you multiplied by pi. Pi is not something you can easily work with and expect a true answer, but that's because you can never put it into your calculator correctly, because pi is pi and it goes on forever, baby. All right, so now that we know the area of my 2 circle bases and the area of my rectangle, it's time to add them. And that would be the surface area of the entire can. All right, guys, I'm done. Sorry this took so long. Bye.